Senator Sotto.
Yes, to continue, Mr. President, I will follow the lead of the distinguished lady when it comes to this provision during the period of individual amendments, Mr. President. Now, in the matter of ancestral domain and natural resources, is this an absolute power of the Bangsamoro regional government?
Well, yes, this is a devolved power that is. And I think that is. Yes, that is clearly best left again to the Bangsamoro government, and furthermore, it is already a power granted by the Constitution to the autonomous region, an exclusive power over ancestral domain and natural resources.
Really, Mr. President, I have difficulty in that.
Well, under the
Article 12 in the Constitution, Section 2, says all lands of the public domains, waters, minerals, coal, petroleum, and other mineral oils, all sources of potential energy, fisheries, forests, or timber, wildlife, flora and fauna, and other natural resources are owned by the state, period. With the exception of agricultural lands, all other natural resources shall not be alienated. The exploration, development, and utilization of natural resources will be under the full control and supervision of the state. The state may directly undertake such activities, or it may enter into co-production, joint venture, or production sharing agreements with Filipino citizens, or corporations, or associations, at least 60% of whose capital is owned by such citizens. Such agreements may be for a period not exceeding. So I doubt if
Mr. President,
this can be allowed, Mr. President.
That is a general provision. When we go to the specific provisions on autonomous region, on Section 20, very clearly, within its territorial jurisdiction, and I will read Section 20.
Yes, please.
Within its territorial jurisdiction and subject to the provisions of this Constitution and national laws, the Organic Act of Autonomous Regions shall provide legislative powers, and it names 9 powers, one of which is number 3, ancestral domain and natural resources.
All right.
How do you resolve those two things?
All right. I'll take that, Mr. President. All right. Thank you, Mr. President. Section 20.
If we
That
go,
negates my apprehension.
yeah, thank you, Mr. President. But there is further language further along in the substitute bill. Again, these are enumerations, so
yes,
they're
I
very
know.
specific. The very specific manner of implementation.
Ano number ba ito? Ano number ito? May we know the meaning of international human resources for capacity building in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region? How and when will this be applicable? Is this not in the concurrent powers? If the national government shall assist and cooperate in ensuring access of relevant international human resources?
No, that merely allows the Bangsamoro government to interact directly. This particularly pertains to the expected offers of assistance in terms of training that we expect from the international community. I have met with several ambassadors who have said that they are watching this process wherein we are creating a new autonomous region, and most importantly, as part of the peace process, and their willingness to help to ensure the success of that peace process by providing assistance. Some have said investments, some have said outright grants, some have talked about their national companies, the companies from their country coming in to invest, and the other one is the development of the human resource development, which essentially comes down to training. So perhaps there will be there will be offers, and I believe that there will be offers for groups to come in and to train the inhabitants of the Bangsamoro. This is especially in certain disciplines. This is especially important in the process of normalization, because when we say normalization, we speak not only of combatants, but we also speak of communities, where we return the combatants to a normal, peaceful life, and the communities that were conflict areas to, again, a normal, peaceful situation. And that is going to be a very critical part of the normalization process, which is, again, a very important part of the peace process. So that is in anticipation of those offers that we know will be forthcoming.
As you said, no, this is an enumeration. Is there a elaboration somewhere along the way in the other sections of the bill?
There is no longer any detail, because we, as it is written, we propose that it will be up to the Bangsamoro government to define their dealings with these. That is why we are allowing them to deal directly with international training or assistance in that way. So precisely so that they can decide exactly what kind of training they need, how it will be conducted, who will conduct, where it will be conducted. All of these details we leave to the Bangsamoro government, so as to be able to customize all of these efforts to exactly what they feel their needs are.
Perhaps I will just give this a second look later on, Mr. President. Ano ba naman, pagka medyo madumi isip eh. Identification, generation, and mobilization of international human resources for capacity building and other activities involving the same within the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region. Pag human resources, it could be anybody. Anyway, so as I said, I will take a second look, Mr. President, and try to understand the explanation that you gave.
Well, Mr. President, essentially that is, again, I'm certainly open to any improvement in the language, but just to guide the gentleman in his study, that pertains to training, capacity building, all of those things. So, if we just to help the gentleman in his study, that is the intent. If he has language that will clarify such an intent, then certainly it would be welcome.
Mobilization of international human resources kasi ang ano dyan eh, parang merong konting ano. Anyway, let me move on. What is Bangsamoro settlements, and how does it differ from going forward, the housing and human settlements? Ano ba ang pagkakaiba nito?
Well, within the Bangsamoro region, the Bangsamoro government will still be the ones to decide where settlements will be made. Of course, with coordination, will be put together. Of course, in coordination with all of the housing agencies that we have presently in the national government. But again, the decision as to where such housing is needed, where, for example, again, we go back to the decommissioning and the normalization process. The combatants have thus far lived rough. So if we are to, we are now going to have to decide when they when they lay down their arms, what communities they will belong to, what permanent communities they will belong to, and those permanent communities will be determined by, again, the Bangsamoro government, as they are the most familiar with not only the area but also the inhabitants and the identity of those combatants and their families.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. What about the next two items, Mr. President, under the enumeration? What is being contemplated in development planning? And then the next number is urban and rural development. Ano po ba mga coverage nito at saka kung may mga limitations or guidelines? Development planning. Ano kaya ibig sabihin po nito at saka yung kasunod?
Development planning is very straightforward. What it really means is they are actually mandated. The Bangsamoro government will be mandated to submit a overall development plan, not only an infrastructure development plan, but again capacity development plan. All of these areas that the Bangsamoro government feels will need special attention, and so that development planning once again will be done by the Bangsamoro government, and again it would seem to make good sense that they decide what, in their view, are the priorities for development in the region.
Submit to who, Mr. President?
To the national government. To the national government. What development Bangsamoro is able to do, the Bangsamoro government is able to do by itself, that will they will undertake that. Should they need further assistance, for example, the road network, the power generation, these kinds of big ticket items will need the assistance of the national government, and that's why the national government must be aware of the priorities that the Bangsamoro government gives to different sectors. And beyond the prioritization of sectors, also the plan as to how many people will be trained, how many, what kind of industries would they like to enter into, what forms of employment do they feel are appropriate for the inhabitants, and what you will have to do what do you have to do to bring about that kind of development. That is going to be the coordination with national government. But again, the fundamental choices that are going to be made will have to be made by the Bangsamoro government.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Going forward to number 42, still on section 21, the last item in that section. In the establishment or creation of other institutions, policies, and laws for the general welfare of the inhabitants in Bangsamoro Autonomous Region, are there any limitations on this exclusive power? Will this catch-all provision not be subject to abuse, Mr. President?
No, it is a very I believe it is very general.
Yun nga, very general.
Very general. But again, the limits imposed upon that power are still the Constitution and national law. So long as it is within that within the allowable powers or actions or functions allowed under national law and the Constitution, then I believe that there's no need to put further constraints on the choices that the Bangsamoro government will make.
All right. That would be the guide. Okay.
This is part, again, of the... although it is a general provision, it is also... It becomes of primary importance during the organization of the Bangsamoro government. Although the Transition Authority will be the lead in that, then there might come a time, such as in the national experience, where right now, for example, we are feeling the need for the Department of Housing. So the government can choose, the Philippine government can choose to institute legislative action so that the Department of Housing will be organized, and that is the kind of institution that perhaps we did not feel a need for before or in the past few years, but we feel a need for now. So that's just an example
All right.
of the kind of specific institution that they might in the future feel a need for. So we have to give them that flexibility so that they can answer they can attend to and answer the challenges, address the challenges that they face, challenges that we do not know the nature of today, but will make themselves known later on in the life of the Bangsamoro region.
But as usual, all under the mantle of the Constitution, all within.
Oh, that is
Thank you.
and it must be shown as the phrase general welfare is included. It must be shown that it is for the betterment of the lives of the inhabitants of the Bangsamoro region.
All right. I move on to Section 22, Mr. President. Other exclusive powers. Under your Section 22, letter A, it states that the national government shall intervene on foreign investments only when it involves national security and public safety. What are the circumstances when government already needs to intervene? Do we have guidelines also within the law?
Oh, yes. Well, again, we would like the question of authority over foreign investment again is in anticipation of the promises that of the assistance that has been promised to the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region, and so again, they are allowed. The Bangsamoro region is allowed to handle those investments in whatever way they please. However, it is again, it is constrained by national law and by the Constitution, and furthermore, in the public interest, it has to involve, if there is a question of national security, then certainly the national government will have to intervene. If it is a question of public safety, then the national government will intervene. But beyond that, again, we leave as much scope as we can to the discretion of the Bangsamoro government as to how to handle such economic activity as investments from foreign lenders or foreign investors.
Thank you, Mr. President. Still on Section 22, the Bangsamoro Parliament, specifically the Chief Minister, is given the power to grant leases, permits, and licenses over agricultural lands and for forest management. Are there any guidelines for this power? How will this look under the proposed bill on the Land Use Act, Mr. President?
Well, again, the limits are defined by national law and the Constitution. Other than that, it is again up to the Bangsamoro Parliament to decide what laws they feel are necessary, what form that they feel it is necessary, and so long as they do not violate any national laws or are shown to be unconstitutional, then I do not feel that there is any necessity to constrain their powers in that regard. It is a fairly normal situation. We allow our provinces and cities to pass ordinances, and since it is a regional, we call them laws, since it is a regional body. And again, as long as it is within the law and constitutional, then clearly it should be left to the discretion of the Bangsamoro Parliament what regulations, what ordinances, what laws they feel are necessary.
Okay. Still on Section 22, we give the Bangsamoro regional government the exclusive power to supervise and regulate private schools. May we know who or which particular body shall regulate and supervise these private schools. Does this mean that they will have their own DepEd?
No, these schools are actually again, this is outside the DepEd system. The private schools. This is referring also to there are several provisions that talk about the promotion of Islamic culture and history, and there is also talk about the establishment of madrasas. Those will be under the regulation of the Bangsamoro government. There is actually we have the provision on the involvement of the DepEd in terms of the material that is going to be taught, the curriculum that is going to be taught in the schools, and it is made very clear that the schools in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region will have to be consistent again with the curriculum that the DepEd formulates for the rest of the country, and the reasoning for this has been very clear, simply because of the experience as we have found in Spain and their experience with Catalonia, that it is apparently a polarizing force to have different curricula from in different regions. So that consistency is there. However, should there be other schools that might want to specifically address the history, the culture, the philosophies, the teachings of Islam, then that will fall under the auspices of the Bangsamoro government.
Okay. I will leave that point now, Mr. President. I understand that in part 2 of my interpellations, I will be dealing with that particular issue on educational issue and system. I really want to be educated also as far as the same system that they will be using in private schools in the Bangsamoro. Let me move on to Section 26, Mr. President. For exclusive powers of the Bangsamoro regional government, are there any safeguards or assurances that these will not be subject of abuse and will not be contrary to the 1987 Constitution or other pertinent national laws? A law cannot be passed or can be passed, but it will be struck down if it is found to be in contrary to national law or the Constitution. That is under the very simple principle that all local laws are, in fact, must be consistent with national law. And so, again, if there is a proposal that would for a law that would in fact violate or repeal or amend a national law, then that simply will not be allowed. But again, I think the national laws are a sufficient limitations on any possible abuse in terms of the passage of laws. They will still have to make sense. They will still have to be legal. They will still have to be shown to be for the good of the community. But again, and we believe that will be the test of legality and consistency with national law and constitutionality are sufficient to make sure that the laws that will be passed will be in fact to the benefit of the Bangsamoro region. Therefore, for concurrent powers, in case of conflict between the national government and the Bangsamoro regional government, the decision of the national government shall prevail.
Yes, that is something that has to be made has been made very clear throughout the substitute bill. There in the original draft of the BBL, there were several mentions of of negotiation with the national government should there be any conflict. This came up on the subject of the police. This came up on the subject of fiscal policy, monetary policy, etc. And that was objectionable to me when I said a subsidiary local government should not be in negotiation with the national government. National government still dictates policy. National law and the Constitution still dictates the legal strictures under which we operate. So that is something that we have attempted to make very, very clear, that we cannot allow, as I said, the repeal, the amendment of any of any national law. Again, the guide that what was done by an act of Congress can only be repealed or changed by another act of Congress.
So, penalties, sanctions for non-compliance of abuse of authority or powers are provided for, of course, within the national government.
It will be the democratic process within the Bangsamoro government.
Yeah, okay.
If let us say, one member of parliament is consistently proposing measures that are objectionable under the Constitution or under national law, then clearly they will lose their credibility and probably lose the next election because they are totally ineffective. So that again, this is where we once again come up to the subject of autonomy. As much as possible, if it was not necessary, and I think it is that the rule that any laws passed by the Bangsamoro Parliament be consistent with national law and the Constitution, I think that is sufficient, a sufficient safeguard that it will be in consonance with general national policy. And again, we do not want to intrude, or rather we want to intrude as little as possible, because we are talking here once again about autonomy. And to make that autonomy real and genuine and felt, then we must allow the Bangsamoro Parliament, the Bangsamoro government, as much freedom to decide their own fate as we can.
All right. Section 26 states that the national government and the Bangsamoro regional government shall establish a quota mechanism at the highest levels that shall coordinate and harmonize their relationships. May I be clarified on what we mean by mechanism at the highest levels?
Well, these are again, they will still have to establish them. How they coordinate. We talked about in the concurrent powers, for example, we talked about coordination and cooperation with the national government. How that's going to be done will have to be decided at a later date. That's when the Bangsamoro government will then, shall we say, there is a concurrent power. How that concurrent power will be exercised, how that coordination will be. Will they put up a body? Will they put up a board? Will there be one officer? Will it be a constant communication, or will there be periodic meetings? Those kind of details will have to come again from when the time comes to organize the Bangsamoro government, and that will have to be decided. I would imagine for each different case it will be slightly different on how this coordination will be handled. For example, customs. The customs, even in the free ports, should they declare free ports? That level of coordination has again to be decided, because the customs officials will have to work hand in hand with the Bangsamoro government officials for the collection of duties of duties in the other ports. So, and then of course to the regulation, the monitoring, that if it is an eco-zone or a free port, that those goods do not enter into the national system, and that they stay within that area. That kind of coordination we did not define. The coordination we defined, but the bodies and the method by which the coordination will be conducted is not defined. That will have to be formulated when the Bangsamoro government is organized. And again, we leave it to the Bangsamoro government and its representatives to decide which is the best way to handle that coordination.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. I see the point. Section 27, the Council of Leaders shall be comprised of representatives from the non-Moro indigenous communities, women, settler communities, sultanates, and other sectors. May we know who will have authority to determine the other sectors that will be considered as members of the Bangsamoro Council of Leaders?
That will fall once again to the Bangsamoro government. Should they decide to add other sectors to this list, then it is well within their right to do so. Again, this is
so open yan, medyo unlimited yan.
This is a feature. The Council of Leaders is a feature we do not have in any other local government in the country. But
yes.
it is a traditional. It is a traditional. Shall we say consultative body in Muslim Mindanao, and it serves a very clear and important purpose. And that is why we again, since we are trying to, we have left as much autonomy to the Bangsamoro government when it comes to all issues of Muslim tradition, Muslim culture, and the continuing of the promotion of Muslim history and culture. We leave it up, of course, to the Bangsamoro government to decide how that is going to be handled. Therefore, although it has to be made very clear, because these are the groups that came to us in the Senate and said that we feel we have a role to play, and it is in the draft BBL that role has not been defined, and we do not feel that it is clear what we should do, but the sentiment was, we feel we can help. How can we help? And this is one of the methods that's why we included them as one of the sectors. These are the sectors that came to us with that offer.
I was going to ask for the purpose of the creation of the Council of Leaders. Somehow you've been able to answer that.
The Council of Leaders is a traditional consultative body, even in government. And again, this is in line with the tradition in Islamic communities.
Well, what would be the weight or the relevance of the advice of the Council of Leaders?
Again, that is to be determined. We do not, as I said, we have no experience ourselves on how the Council of Leaders is handled. But certainly, at the very least, they will recommend courses of action. They will provide wise and sagacious analysis of the situation in Muslim Mindanao and provide their inputs. Certainly, again, it will depend. I suppose the weight that is given to such advice, such recommendations, will depend on the individual. Yung ba, alam naman natin, pagka may consultative body, meron mga iba dyan, talagang pinakikinggan, basta't magsasalita, yes. Lahat nakikinig. At dahil sa experience natin, tama yung marunong yung taong yun. Meron naman, hindi masyadong experience pa, so maybe that weight will be less until they have arrived at the same status.
So at the very least, we're speaking of persuasion.
Yes, moral suasion. Yeah. I think moral suasion is
that would be the
is a good description as to what they can impose, yes, on the government.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, that ends my interpretation on my first part, on part one. So I will suspend the interpolation, and I can continue tomorrow with part two if you're willing to listen, and the distinguished gentleman is still willing to answer some of the questions. I stopped at section 27.
The preference of the chair is that the good gentleman, Senator Soto, will continue tomorrow. So that
Yes, sir.
If
Thank
the gentleman sponsor would continue to yield.
I will be here and available to
Thank
answer
you.
any questions, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to the distinguished gentleman from Ilocos Norte.
So we will calendar this again for tomorrow
Yes.
for the continuation of part 2.